Do you believe in monsters? I do. I've got one under my bed. But before you ask me why I'm forcing my neighbor to sleep under my bed, I think you should get a load of these stories. What you're about to see and hear are 5 allegedly true stories from people like you who claim to have seen real-life monsters, all of which have been drawn to life so that you can live the experience yourself. Now lock the doors, shut the windows, and settle in, because there's something just outside, and it's waiting for you. The Thing in the Reeds by Spencer S. I was about 12 years old at the time. I had just taken up photography. I live in a small town in Wisconsin that has a public campground just outside the limits, and I had been looking for a spot for a unique photo opportunity. But little did I know what I was getting myself into. One day that summer, I had been riding my bike for a few miles before I remembered that the campground had a small lake. I thought that I could make it there and back home before dark. I reached the entrance to the campground right before sunset, and I was in a hurry to take my photos and get home before it got dark. As I made my way down the pier toward the lake, I began to notice that the sounds of the wildlife around me had gone completely and eerily silent. That was when I smelled it, a foul combination of smells, like spoiled meat, rotten fruit, just decay. As I began to look around, I heard splashing and movement to my left. As I turned to look in the direction of the sounds, I saw a tall figure, about 8 feet tall, watching me from above the reeds. I was locked in its gaze for what felt like hours, but it must have only been a few minutes. After the figure turned away and began to walk away from me, I was so horrified at what I had just seen. I hopped onto my bike and I sped out of there as fast as I could. To this day, no one knows of my encounter. My friends and family are skeptics, and I don't have the courage to tell them because I know they wouldn't believe me. It Attacked Us by Bobcat73. I was 10 years old. My family and I moved houses after my dad got a job offer. I had to leave my old neighborhood, leave along my old friends, and my sister and I had to get used to things all over again. One day we were quite bored, so we decided to take a hike and explore through the new woods around our place. Now, behind our house, that's where the forest is most dense, and you could hear a stream running through it. We had been walking about an hour when we heard a snap in the nearby bushes, which freaked out my little sister. She had always been one of those jumpy types of people, but I was stubborn, so we carried on. It was about 5 minutes after we heard the snap in the bushes, when all around us, nature went silent. It felt like we were being watched. Cliché, I know, but it felt like there wasn't just the two of us. There was something out there staring right at us. Then, the forest silence was suddenly broken by a strange yowl, like a screeching cat, but more drawn out and much, much deeper. It was followed by the distressed call from a deer, and then utter silence. The call was about 100 yards away from us, so we bolted. But whatever it was gaining on us. And in my panic, I pushed my sister into a thorn bush, and I followed after, too shocked to feel the pain. We held each other tightly, and then we heard a deep growl to the right of us. Slowly, we turned to look, bracing ourselves to come face to face with this beast. But when we looked, there was nothing there. But then the stench hit us, a stench like sulfur, bodily waste, and copper. Then we heard a scratching sound above us, and we snapped our heads up to look at it. And what we saw would scar us for the rest of our lives. What we saw was a creature with a body shape similar to that of a panther, but light gray with a black stripe down its spine. The head was more akin to a boar, but its feet, they were like a dog's paws, but it did not have a tail. Its eyes were a misty blue, like it was blind or something. But then it snapped its head to look at us, and I swear, it smiled. It was nothing a human being should ever have to see. It had teeth like razors, and there seemed to be red fluid dripping from its yellowish fangs. We ran, and we did not look back, not even as the branches began snapping, and the growls and grunts of this creature echoed. When we got to the edge of our property, the paw steps faded away. We ran to our front door, opened it, and slammed it shut, before passing out from exhaustion and terror on the couch. My sister and I still talk about this incident, and each time we bring it up, the same spark of fear blazes in her eyes. Black Holes and an Open Mouth by Fabian. It was a late evening in Iseberg, Sweden. Me, Greta, Haldor, and my sister Miriam were outside. The two girls were playing with the dog, while Haldor and I were making spears out of wood and sticks, pretending to be survivalists. It was a lot of fun. But the thing none of us knew at the time was that this was going to be the most horrible day of our lives. All of a sudden, a very strange noise began to erupt from our left. Almost in unison, we turned our heads, and what we saw is extremely hard to describe, but I'll try my best. A tall figure, almost 4 feet above my head, with a human-like body, except that it was covered in thick black hair, was standing there, and it was staring at us. The way it looked, it made me tremble. It had 2 black holes where the eyes should have been, and an open mouth with teeth that looked strong enough to crush bone. My cousin, who had been making another spear before we saw it, but now he was on the ground trembling like I was. Then he began to scream. I tried to calm him down, but he was in shock, so I told my sister and Greta to go inside quickly and take the dog with them. Finally, I was able to calm Haldor. I helped him to his feet, and we took a look back at the creature. It was coming right towards us. I had hoped that Haldor's scream would have scared it away, but instead, it wanted to get closer. The creature was maybe 12 feet away from us now. As I panicked and backed away, the creature stopped and just stood there again, staring. What did it want from us? Was it going to attack, or was it just watching? We began to move more quickly backwards, as the figure stood there, not even moving a muscle, though its eyes, those dark black holes, were enough to drive anyone mad if you stared at them too long. I whispered in Haldor's ear, "We have to run. We need to go now." He tried his best to nod, but with the way he was shaking, it was more like a tic. Then, we ran for our lives, ran as fast as we could back inside, and swiftly ran over to the window. Once there, we took a look outside. there still stood the beast, still staring at us through the window. For the longest time, we simply stared at each other. I was waiting for it to leave, but who knows what it had in mind. Eventually, it turned around and slowly walked back into the woods. There's not much more to say to this. I never did see the thing again, except for in my nightmares. But there's one thing I can say for certain. I'll never forget its face. The Creeping Creature from the Forest by Michael J. It was the middle of spring in 2016. I was 15 years old then. I was at home with my brother, both of us quite bored, so I told him that I was going to go out for a few hours, and he simply nodded. I went outside and I began to walk down the streets. Nothing special, just a typical walk, something I didn't even do that often. Usually when I do, it's to hang out with friends, but on this day, I was walking alone. I got to the point where I was more bored then than I was at home, and so I thought, why not go to the nearby forest? Perhaps that would be a bit more interesting. I looked up on Google Maps any nearby forest trails, and I found one only a few meters away from where I was. Bizarrely, much more closer than I expected. I found the trail in no time, and I began to walk along it. There weren't any other people out and about that day, just me and the forest. I had been walking on that trail for about 10 minutes. Saw some small animals like raccoons and some insects. I was beginning to think this was better than staying at home, and that I should come out more often. That was until I saw it. I walked past something odd, a shining object. I quickly turned to see what it was, but there was nothing there. Strange. I kept on walking, but soon I saw the same sort of glint out of my peripheral vision. But when I turned once more, I finally saw what was causing it. Eyes. Eyes coming from the most bizarre and disturbing animal I'd ever seen. It was like a creep, a creature, a human, with horns and rotten-looking claws. I saw it, crouching on the ground, leaning forward and feasting upon something, but I couldn't tell what. Normally, when I saw something like this, I would just run. But just as I was thinking about what to do, the creature noticed me. It turned so quickly in my direction, I jumped. It was now staring and looking at me, like looking into my soul. I ran all the way home, never looking back, my ears perked, waiting for the dreadful sound that told me it was pursuing me. Luckily, I never heard it. I got home, opened the door and locked it behind me. My brother was staring at me with a strange look and said, "Are you okay, dude?" Without looking at him, I answered, "I'm fine." That night, I was in bed, and I woke up at around 4:34. It was still completely dark outside, not yet close enough to morning for the sun to rise. I rubbed my eyes and wondered, why was I awake? I didn't feel the need to use the bathroom. But then I heard the sound of rustling. It was coming from the bushes just outside my window. I looked, terrified, toward the window. But at first, there was nothing there. I rolled over, facing the window, keeping an eye on it, until I eventually drifted back to sleep. But I was almost immediately interrupted. The rustling came again, louder than before. Tired, irritated, and a little bit creeped out, I crawled out of bed and walked over to the window. I began to sweat, and my eyes were watering. Outside, there was the creature, the same rotten-clawed thing, same horns as before. It was the creature I had seen on my walk through the woods. I don't know what it was doing, but it was out there, just outside of our home. I ran to my bed and basically flew under my blanket. I hid there trembling, hoping that it hadn't seen me looking at it. It was the most scared I'd ever been, and I thank God I've never seen that creature again. The Predator of Shallow Water by Tristen. I was about 5 years old when it happened. I'm sure most people would not remember too much from that age. So young. But this event is different. This event scarred me for the rest of my life. It happened in Shallow Water, Kansas, a very small town just outside of Scott City, where I was born. I was playing outside in my great-grandmother Ruth's backyard. It was a normal, beautiful day, almost perfect. The sky was clear, it was warm, and there was a slight, comfortable breeze blowing in. A nice Kansas day. Everything was going perfectly, until I looked toward the roof of the school nearby that was across the dirt road from my grandma's house. I looked up, just randomly, and perchance I saw it, and for who knows how long, it had seen me. To be honest with you, I'm getting goosebumps just typing this up. The thing was standing on top of the school. It was about 4 or 5 feet tall, and it had large red eyes and very large wings. It looked like something straight from the bowels of hell. The wings were like those of a bat, and they were dark brown in color. The creature itself was all black, with a massive scar on its left leg, like it had been attacked before, maybe shot or sliced, and somehow the thought of that made it all the more terrifying. If you've ever seen the movie E.T., its head was similar to that. And as soon as it knew I realized it was watching me, it jumped down from the roof and began walking in my direction. It's hard to describe how petrified I was. It walked until it was about 30 feet from me, and at that time, I was crying, and I finally got the courage to stand up and run back to my grandma's house, back to safety as fast as I could. But I know deep down, if that thing really wanted me, then I wouldn't be here to write this right now. I'm more than sure with wings that big, it could have been on me in moments, wrapping those clawed fingers around my small child's head, crushing it or dragging me away to never be seen again. As soon as I ran inside, tears flowing down my face, the adults asked me what was wrong, and I simply replied, "I saw a predator." That's what I had decided to call it at a split second, the Predator. I don't really remember why, but it just seemed like something you would call that thing. Several years later in my life, when I was 10 years old, my dad and I were talking about it. He said to me that it was not the first time he had an experience with what I called the Predator. He told me that he had seen something once that perfectly matched the description that I gave him. He said he saw it. It took his dog and even a few cats when he was a teenager. He said that he had shot at it once, but only managed to hit it in the leg with his hunting rifle before the thing flew off and away with one of his pets. I'm 17 now, and I'm so scared and paranoid of this thing that I outright refuse to go back to that town without a weapon. Nobody knows what it is, but I know that it is a carnivore, and it takes small creatures. With that being said, I'm lucky to be alive today, because when I was 5 years old, I would have been the perfect size for a snack. If you ever visit Shallow Water, Kansas, let me just warn you, don't forget protection. You never know when you may need it. So, did you enjoy these illustrated tales? This storybook of real-life horrors? Well, not to worry. If these stories did chill you even a little bit, chances are you don't even live anywhere near where the stories took place. But if you do, I hope you stay alive after you see something, because I'm always in the need for a new story. Good night. Be sure to like, share, comment, and subscribe if you enjoyed the video. Don't forget, you can send me your stories at darknessprevails.org. If you want to support this channel further, think about going to patreon.com/darknessprevails and donate any amount, and you'll get your name in the credits at the end of these videos. Or get some of my merchandise by clicking the shop button below this video, or go to morbidmonsters.com. Thank you. Now, here are my 5 favorite early comments from the previous video about 5 true truck stop horror stories. Henry Strohmeyer says, please make more lockdown stories. I get a request for this almost every video now, so maybe I should make some lockdown stories. Zeppelin Girl 86 says, next exit, death. This needed way more upvotes. Haley Green says, love it. More comic style, please. Does this video count? I hope you enjoy. Sean K says, are you looking for Massachusetts stories? It's a hotbed for supernatural occurrences, and I think I might have a few to share. Well, thanks to these artists who are helping me illustrate my videos, I think an animated ghost stories video would be really cool. And Fraser Smith asks, why are some of your older videos privated? Those are videos I need to delete because they should no longer be on my channel. That was before I did viewer submissions, and to be completely safe, I'm going to delete all my videos that did not consist entirely of viewer submissions. Gotta be safe on YouTube in order to not get demonetized. Anyways guys, thanks so much for tuning in to another Darkness Prevails episode. More scary stories are coming soon, so stay tuned. Until next time, here are the credits to my patrons who continue to help and donate. Remember, stay safe out there and stay creepy, because this world is a strange one.